I was there. I saw it all with my own two eyes. Let me tell you about Tom. Tom Mutiso, the son of Mzee Mutiso, the richest man in Machakos County. Everyone knew the Mutiso family. They owned almost everything. Shops, farms, buses, and even a new hotel near the market. But Tom? He was the talk of the town, not because of his father's wealth, but because of his arrogance. Tom walked around like he owned the air we breathe. He treated people like dirt under his shoes, his workers, his friends, and even strangers. If you dared cross his path, you'd regret it. But that day was different. It was a rainy Wednesday morning. The sky was heavy with clouds, and the roads were muddy. I was standing by the roadside near the kiosk where I sell sugarcane when I saw her, Mama Akinyi. She's an old woman who sells vegetables at the market. She was walking slowly, her feet covered in mud, clutching her basket tightly. Just then, I heard the roar of Tom's shiny black car. He was driving fast, blasting music and laughing with his friends. As he sped past, his tires hit a large puddle, splashing muddy water all over Mama Akinyi. What is this now? Mama Akinyi exclaimed, dropping her basket. Her green lesso was soaked, her face covered in mud. She stood there, looking at the car as it screeched to a halt a few meters ahead. Tom stepped out, dressed in his usual designer clothes. His friends followed, laughing as they pointed at Mama Akinyi. "Old woman, why are you standing in the middle of the road like a goat?" Tom shouted, his voice full of mockery. "But my son, you splashed me," Mama Akinyi said calmly, wiping her face with her hands. "Splashed you? So what? Do you think I have time to babysit people like you?" Tom sneered, walking closer. The woman shook her head. "At least apologize. You have no respect for your elders." Tom laughed loudly, clapping his hands. "Apologize? To you? Do you know who I am? I am Tom Mutiso. Do you think your market coins can match my father's money?" His friends joined in the laughter, but what happened next shocked even them. Tom pushed Mama Akinyi, causing her to stumble back into the muddy water. "Go back to your vegetable stall, old woman," he said, turning back to his car. Mama Akinyi sat there in silence for a moment. Then she slowly stood up, her eyes piercing into Tom. "Mutiso's son," she said in a calm but chilling voice. "Today you have chosen to insult someone you do not know. Remember this day." Tom only waved her off. "Whatever, crazy old lady," he muttered as he got into his car and drove off. But from that moment, things began to change for Tom. It was a week later when I saw her, Naliaka. That's what she called herself. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. Skin smooth like polished wood, eyes that sparkled like the morning sun, and a smile that could stop anyone in their tracks. Tom saw her first. He was driving by the roadside, the same place he had splashed Mama Akinyi. Naliaka was standing there, looking lost. "Hey, beautiful," Tom called out, stopping the car. "Do you need a ride?" Naliaka smiled softly. "I'm new here. I was looking for directions, but if you could give me a lift, I'd appreciate it." Tom didn't hesitate. "Get in. I'm the son of the richest man in town. I can take you anywhere you want." That was the beginning of the whirlwind. Tom fell for Naliaka faster than rain falls in April. He introduced her to his friends, took her to fancy restaurants, and showered her with gifts. Within a month, he proposed. She said yes. But strange things began happening from the moment Naliaka entered Tom's life. Tom's businesses started failing. His father's buses began breaking down on the highway. The hotel he just opened was suddenly infested with termites. Even his expensive car stalled in the middle of town one day. "What's going on?" Tom shouted one evening, pacing around his house. Naliaka sat calmly on the sofa, sipping tea. "Sometimes," she said, her voice as soft as a lullaby, "things happen to teach us lessons." "What lessons?" "I don't need lessons," Tom snapped. "I've always been on top, and that's where I belong." Naliaka only smiled, but there was something unsettling about her gaze. It felt ancient. The people in town started whispering. "Tom is cursed," they said. "Maybe he insulted the wrong person." And I watched from the sidelines, remembering Mama Akinyi's words. "Remember this day." Tom was spiraling, and Naliaka? She seemed untouched by the chaos. She always looked perfect, calm and unbothered. "Tom," she said one night, "do you ever think about the people you've hurt?" "What are you talking about?" he asked, frowning. "Like that old woman by the road," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "The one you splashed with mud." Tom froze. "How do you know about that?" Naliaka smiled, but this time it wasn't the soft, sweet smile he was used to. It was different.
The room fell silent after Naliaka's question. Tom, for the first time, felt a chill crawl up his spine. How could she possibly know about the incident with Mama Akinyi? He had never mentioned it to anyone. His friends, though present that day, hadn't brought it up since. He tried to shrug it off. "It's a small town," he said, forcing a laugh. "People talk, I guess." Naliaka's smile didn't falter, but her eyes seemed to pierce through him. She didn't press further, but the uneasiness lingered. Days turned into weeks, and Tom's life continued to unravel. His father, Mzee Mutiso, called him one morning. "Tom, what is happening?" His father's voice boomed over the phone. "Our trucks were impounded today for carrying expired goods. Do you know how embarrassing this is? What are you doing to my name?" "Baba, I had no idea about this," Tom stammered. "I'll handle it." "Handle it? You've been saying that for weeks. First, the buses break down, then the hotel closes due to termites, and now this? You are ruining everything I've built." Tom hung up, sweating. It felt like everything he touched turned into a disaster. Even his closest friends had started avoiding him, whispering behind his back. Meanwhile, Naliaka remained unbothered. She moved around the house gracefully, her presence both soothing and unnerving. She often spoke in riddles, saying things like, "Sometimes the storm clears the air," or "Every action has its consequence." One evening, as they sat down for dinner, Tom couldn't hold back his frustration any longer. "Naliaka, do you think someone cursed me?" he asked, his voice trembling. She looked up from her plate, her expression unreadable. "Why would you think that?" "Because nothing is going right," he snapped. "My businesses are failing, my father is angry, and even my car doesn't work anymore. Ever since you came into my life." He stopped, realizing what he was about to say. Naliaka's eyes darkened. "Are you blaming me, Tom?" No, I didn't mean it like that," he stuttered. She leaned back in her chair, her gaze steady. "Perhaps you should reflect on your past, Tom. Think about the seeds you've sown. Maybe you're simply reaping what you planted." Tom slammed his fist on the table. "I don't need riddles, Naliaka. I need answers." She said nothing, only rising from her seat and walking away, leaving him alone with his anger and confusion. The following day, Tom decided to visit the site where he first met Naliaka. He hoped that retracing his steps might give him some clarity. As he drove his second car, a less flashy one since his favorite car was still in the garage, he noticed something strange. The road seemed different. The trees along the roadside appeared taller, older, and darker. The air felt heavier, almost suffocating. When he reached the spot, he parked and stepped out. The puddle where he had splashed Mama Akinyi was still there, though it had dried up. He stood there, looking around, trying to make sense of his thoughts. That's when he saw her. Mama Akinyi was sitting under a large tree, peeling potatoes. She looked up as he approached, her face calm but her eyes sharp. "Mutiso's son," she said, her voice carrying a weight that made him pause. "What brings you here?" Tom hesitated. I wanted to say I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sorry. Mama Akinyi repeated, raising an eyebrow. For what? For splashing water on you that day. And for how I treated you. She chuckled softly, but there was no humor in it. Sorry, you say. Do you think words can wash away actions, like rain washes away footprints? Tom felt a lump in his throat. Please, Mama. My life is falling apart. I don't know what to do. Mama Akinyi stood, her small frame somehow imposing. What you did to me is only a glimpse of the harm you've caused others. The workers you've insulted. The friends you've betrayed. The people you've stepped on to climb higher. And now, you come here seeking forgiveness because your world is crumbling. I didn't know, Tom began, but she cut him off. You didn't know because you didn't care to know, she said, her voice firm. But now you will learn. Before he could respond, Mama Akinyi walked away, disappearing into the trees. When Tom returned home, Naliaka was waiting for him. She stood by the window, her silhouette illuminated by the setting sun. Did you find what you were looking for? She asked without turning around. How did you know where I went? He demanded. She turned to face him, her expression calm. I know many things, Tom. More than you could ever imagine. Who are you? He asked, his voice shaking. Naliaka smiled, but this time it was a smile that sent chills down his spine. Do you remember what Mama Akinyi told you? Tom froze. How do you know about her? Because I am her, Naliaka said, her voice echoing strangely in the room. Tom staggered back, his heart pounding. What are you saying? She took a step forward, her features shifting slightly. For a brief moment, he saw Mama Akinyi's face overlaid on Naliaka's. You disrespected me, Tom, she said, her voice now a mix of her own and the old woman's. But more than that, you have lived your life disrespecting everyone you thought was beneath you. I decided to teach you a lesson, to show you what it feels like to be powerless. Tom fell to his knees. Please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It's not just about me, she interrupted. It's about everyone you've hurt. This is not about punishment, Tom. It's about redemption. But that depends on you. What do you want me to do? He asked desperately. Naliaka, or Mama Akinyi, smiled again, but this time it was softer, almost kind. Start by fixing what you've broken. Apologize to those you've wronged. Help those you've oppressed. And most importantly, learn to treat people with respect. Tom nodded, tears streaming down his face. I'll do it. I promise. Naliaka stepped back, her form shimmering. We'll see, Tom. We'll see. And with that, she vanished, leaving Tom alone in the empty house. The next morning, Tom woke up feeling different. The weight on his chest was still there, but there was also a spark of hope. He knew what he had to do. He started small, visiting the workers he had mistreated and apologizing. Some accepted his apology, while others dismissed him with cold stares. But he didn't give up. He reopened his father's businesses, not as a boss barking orders, but as a leader working alongside his employees. He began to see the struggles of the people he once looked down on, and it humbled him. But every so often, he would catch a glimpse of Naliaka, or was it Mama Akinyi, watching him from a distance. Her presence was a constant reminder that his journey was far from over.